Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your participation in this session. Today, we will be discussing some of the most interesting work streams we have in the Inter-American Development Bank Infrastructure Department to promote social inclusion through the digitalization of infrastructure services and the promotion of a circular and integrated economy. Infrastructure development plays an essential role in the achievement of most of the Sustainable Development Goals, such as reducing poverty, promoting sustainable agriculture in rural areas, improving the quality of schools and hospitals, and ensuring safe water and sanitation. According to the IDB estimates, the infrastructure gap to reach the Sustainable Development Goals in our region by 2030 requires investing more than 3% of the regional GDP each year into the water and sanitation sector, energy, transportation, and telecommunications. It is clear that we need to work hard to close that gap. Furthermore, the unexpected expenses and losses that the COVID-19 pandemic has entailed, and further challenges such as climate change, make it harder for our countries to close such a gap. But the outlook is not completely green. There are plenty of opportunities for us to work together to boost sustainable development and social inclusion. And that's what we will see in the following sessions. Alex Riobot from the infrastructure and energy sector will tell us how we can take advantage of digitalization to solve some of the critical challenges facing infrastructure services provision in our region. Natalia Espinola from the Water and Sanitation Division will present one of our signature initiatives, which seeks to better manage food loss and waste across the entire food supply chain. And Natasha Nunes from the Mining and Geothermal Energy Group will tell us about the great opportunity that the mining sector presents for countries to develop local value chains and support vulnerable groups in the region. We hope you will enjoy these initiatives. Now I will give the floor to Alex Riobot. Alex, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ariel, and good morning to all of you. It is an honor for me to be able to share with you how the Inter-American Development Bank envisions the future of infrastructure sectors in Latin America and the Caribbean, how we visualize the outlook for the energy, transportation, and water and sanitation sectors in a few years' time. That future is based on the bank's Vision 2025, which establishes digital transformation as one of the pillars that will support the economic recovery of Latin America and the Caribbean. The productivity gains that digital transformation can generate in the infrastructure sectors are considerable, mainly due to three factors. First, the region has underinvested in these sectors, which means that there is still poor access to water and sanitation, electricity, and transportation services. Second, these sectors lack a robust ecosystem for innovation and adoption of digital technologies. And third, these three sectors combined account for 15% of the GDP in each of the countries of the region. In other words, the potential economic and social benefits that digital transformation can bring to the infrastructure sector are enormous. Let's look at some examples. In the energy sector, the use of digital technologies will enable better management of renewable energies, such as solar and wind. Digital transformation of the power grid will be able to reduce operation and maintenance costs and improve the efficiency of transmission and distribution networks. Demand management programs based on the analysis of a large amount of data provided by smart meters could save up to $270 billion in investments. In transportation, the use of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, connectivity, and autonomy could save 100,000 lives. 100,000 people die in road fatalities every year in Latin America and the Caribbean. Likewise, the use of these technologies could reduce parking space for passengers and cargo vehicles by up to 80%. In the water and sanitation sector, the digital transformation of systems and processes can result in a reduction of operating costs by up to 25%. The automated detection of commercial and non-commercial losses could reduce water supply failures by 30% and time for repairs by up to 10%. The potential impact that the adoption of innovative technologies would bring to these sectors could exceed that of the Industrial Revolution. If this opportunity is seized, if sectors manage to adapt and take advantage of the transformative effects of disruptive technologies, the region will experience improvements in growth, innovation, and social inclusion. In line with the guidelines of the bank's Vision 2025, we have defined a work plan with 5 major goals. Increase the knowledge and digital skills of our teams. Modernize public policies and regulatory frameworks. Promote the adoption of digital technologies in government institutions and utilities in the sectors. Improve the digital ecosystem of the region. Provide citizens with data and tools that allows them to become part of the value chain, transforming them from consumers to prosumers. How much progress have we made so far? We're on the right track. 10,000 hours of training in digital technologies and innovation for our teams last year. Development of regulatory guidelines for disruptive technologies such as autonomous vehicles. 3 innovation processes and 2 hackathons to identify creative solutions to some of the major problems of the sectors during the last 18 months. Development of digital tools, some of them using artificial intelligence to generate data, automate analysis, and obtain insights that lead to better decisions. 3 examples of these tools developed by the IDB. In June 2020, we launched Distanciados, a digital tool that uses artificial intelligence to leverage installed public safety cameras to measure social distancing in public space in real time, delivering key insights on places where education and enforcement are needed. This tool has been installed in 40 cities in 8 countries in the region. In December 2020, we launched Pavimentados, a digital tool that uses computer vision technology to assess the quality of roads and signage, automate and speed up data collection, and deliver cost savings. Pavimentados is being used in 7 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. More than 70,000 kilometers are being analyzed with Pavimentados. This year, we complete the development of Energizados, a tool that uses artificial intelligence to detect anomalies in energy consumption, helping utilities to take measures to reduce fraud. We developed Energizados in collaboration with one of our clients in Brazil. We are now expanding the use of this tool to other countries and to the water and sanitation sector. In addition, we are developing a series of digital transformation blueprints where we analyze best practices of the leading countries, diagnose the needs and gaps in Latin America and the Caribbean, and outline a series of recommendations for policymakers and regulators to embark on digital transformation. But there is still much to do, and we must accelerate to achieve a prosperous region strengthened by digital transformation in infrastructure sectors. We can help countries take advantage of disruptive technologies. We therefore call on our donors and private sector partners to join forces and continue working together to improve lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Very interesting. And now I will welcome Natalia Spinola to talk about our food and waste management initiative.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So let's begin. In Latin America and the Caribbean, 220 million tons of food are lost or wasted every year. This represents about 1/3 of the food that is produced for human consumption. This is a massive phenomenon that not too many people know about. So food loss and waste takes place across the supply chain from farm to fork or from production to consumption. It affects all food groups, especially fruits and vegetables. So, for example, we waste more than 50% of all the fruits and vegetables that we produce. There are also other sectors, as you can see in the image, such as dairy products, where we waste 20% of what is produced. There are many drivers that explain this massive amount of food loss and waste. These include high quality standards, so for example, excessive trimming to attain a certain aesthetic at the packaging and processing stages, but also the removal of imperfect looking goods in marketplaces and supermarkets. These very high standards can lead to overproduction, as a high percentage of these products will not comply with these very high standards. Another driver is inefficient logistics. So, for example, lack of cold chain capacity and inadequate packaging practices, which lead to poor handling of food products. We have the regulations on expiration dates that create confusion amongst consumers, and also low final disposal costs, which creates little incentive for minimizing food waste. So, why is this agenda relevant? Reducing food loss and waste is at the core of our development agenda, critical to reaching the world's sustainable development goals. We have the SDG target 12.3, which seeks to halve global food waste at retail and consumer levels, as well as to reduce food loss during production and supply. So by reducing food loss and waste, we also tackle many other SDGs by creating economic, social, and environmental benefits. We waste 1/3 of the food we produce in a region where 60 million people suffer from hunger. Also, reducing food loss and waste could reduce global greenhouse gas emissions by 8% and reduce our water footprint. The environmental and social dimension of this agenda is highly aligned to the IDB Group's 2025 vision, where one of the priorities is to promote climate change mitigation and adaptation to contribute to sustainable and inclusive growth in the region. This is why we launched Sin Desperdicio in 2018 with the goal of reducing food loss and waste across the region. In Sin Desperdicio, we work on 4 priority areas. So we have innovation, which includes the use of technology to reduce food loss and waste throughout supply chains, so from production to consumption. Another area is knowledge to measure and identify the causes behind food loss and waste. Policy to support the development and advance legislation on public policy to create an enabling environment for the reduction of food loss and waste. And behavior, with the end goal of promoting responsible and sustainable behavior across food supply chains. So through these actions, we seek to unlock investment in the region. Sin Desperdicio is a network of partners committed to reducing food loss and waste in Latin America and the Caribbean. Here you can see the partners that have been working with us. Each corporate partner contributes to the financing of the platform. So we have already invested about $1.5 million during the past 3 years. We have also already locked financing for $1 million for the 2021-2024 period and are actively seeking new partners interested in this agenda. This seed funding will be critical to unlock further investment across the food supply chains in the region. So let me show you now what we have done in the past 3 years with the Sin Desperdicio platform. We have launched 4 innovation contests in Argentina, Mexico, Central America, and Bogota to identify innovative solutions for reducing food loss and waste in the region. Here we had 537 startups apply, and 12 awardees received a total of $110,000 in seed capital. We're also working on the implementation of 2 pilot projects in the region. So one in Argentina for food recovery in the fruit and vegetable supply chain, and another in Colombia to reduce food waste in 2 fruit market vegetables. In terms of public policy, the Sin Desperdicio platform has financed the development of the National Food Loss and Waste Strategy 2030 of Argentina, as you can see here, but also the Food Loss and Waste Reduction Strategy of the state of Jalisco and Mexico, which has yet to be published. The platform has also contributed to the creation of a food loss and waste quantification method in Colombia, and also released a paper about food waste in Argentina's retail industry in 2019. So through the Sin Desperdicio platform, we inspire actions, solutions, and investment. We invite you to join the #1 platform for reducing food loss and waste in Latin America and the Caribbean, and become part of this network of companies and organizations committed to creating impact at scale. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia, for this important initiative. Now, I will invite Natasha Nunes to talk about our important initiative on extractives in the infrastructure department. Natasha, please go ahead.
Thank you, Ariel. Good morning and good afternoon to all who are listening. Let me get this. There you go. So my name is Natasha Nunes Acuña, and I am here to tell you about the opportunities for leveraging the value of Latin America and the Caribbean's abundant underground natural resources and translating them into development results. Latin America and the Caribbean is the leading source of metals and the #1 recipient of foreign mining investment worldwide. The mining sector is not just another source of income for the region, it is a fundamental pillar of our economy, generating significant sums of fiscal resources, which in turn are key for the economic recovery post-COVID especially. With some of the world's largest reserves of critical minerals like copper, lithium, silver, iron ore, zinc, gold, among many, many others, this industry supports the two main global transformations of our time: the energy transition towards a low-carbon global economy and the digital revolution, both of which are cornerstones of the IDB Group's Vision 2025. As you know, and I'm especially looking at those of you in tech and climate sustainability, minerals are essential components of new technologies in the energy and digital sectors. We recognize that the industry is not without its challenges: environmental, social, financial, etc. That's why at the IDB, we know that to harvest the sustainable development value out of the region's mineral potential, partnerships are fundamental. For any given project, we team up with national and local governments, industry and civil society stakeholders like professional chambers, business associations, academia, community organizations, and others to tackle the sector's key challenges. Let me tell you about some of our most exciting recent partnerships. In Brazil, Chile, and Peru, we implemented the Beyond Extraction program with mining giant Anglo American and the international nonprofit TechnoServe. This program takes advantage of mining investments for the sustainable promotion of local economies through entrepreneurship and skills for employment, avoiding dependency on the project, but most importantly, taking advantage of the long-term relation between mining and the development of a specific territory. In Perito Moreno, Argentina, we've prepared an integral territorial development plan together with mining giant Newmont in order to leverage that investment to integrate mining with other local economic activities and promote better urban and regional infrastructure. This project was made possible through a project-specific grant, whereby the company provided funds to the IDB for an intervention that would help transform mining investment into development outcomes in a specific territory. At the national level, we've accompanied Colombia's Mining and Energy Ministry in the design and implementation of a gender equity public policy. It's no secret that mining, oil, and gas are hyper-masculine industries, and we are very proud of Colombia for standing up to the challenge, defining an action plan, and transforming this reality alongside other sector stakeholders. Chile has also made thrilling progress in the social environmental sustainability around its very important mining sector. And our partnership has been based on assisting the country in reaching a common vision for their national mining policy, which is now being ratified by meaningful, culturally appropriate public consultations across the country. And I won't drag you into the details, but we're also very enthusiastic about Ecuador's $78 million sovereign guaranteed loan to manage their underground resources sustainably, an operation in which we also articulate private and civil society sector stakeholders. So looking at the potential partners that are listening to us, here's our pitch. First, we cannot enable solutions that harness the value of the region's natural resources, as we have, were it not for donor countries and institutions that believe that the region's mining sector can and must become more sustainable, especially as it provides all the critical inputs to facilitate growth and the energy transition the world so badly needs. We're grateful for the Canadian Facility for the Extractive Sector, whose $50 million contribution has been a cornerstone of our regional portfolio. And we encourage other donor countries, especially those of you who are taking climate action seriously, understand the importance of strengthening value chains responsibly, and realize the need to access critical minerals supply uninterruptedly, to consider establishing a fund to tackle the sector's most salient challenges and consolidate our technical assistance and capacity strengthening agenda in Latin America and the Caribbean, the world's mineral hub. Second, now to all our potential partners from the private sector, the public sector, and civil society. We love to discuss our upcoming interventions and studies with you. We have a few regional and country-specific projects in pipeline, and we value the diversity of perspectives that partnering with multiple stakeholders brings to the table. Specifically, we're looking to build knowledge and take action on measuring the impact that mining has on sustainable development indicators at the local level, the connection between shared value agreements with local communities and social conflict, and mainstreaming a gender perspective in the sector's activity and areas of influence, and last but not least, the skills gap for the mining of the future. Let's find out together what reskilling programs are needed so the Latin American and the Caribbean mines are as clean and efficient as possible. And let's prioritize the training of women so that they can ride the wave of digital transformation instead of being floored by it. With that, I would like to end by reiterating that there is much to be done to transform the region's underground resources into better futures for our communities and to improve lives. Partnerships are essential to make this happen. Don't hesitate to contact me with your idea for collaborations. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Natasha. I have some questions for you. For the speakers, and well, I will get more questions, but the first one that I want to ask is for Alex. Alex, could you please elaborate on what are the main obstacles making it more difficult for the digitalization of infrastructure to be adopted more broadly in Latin America and the Caribbean? And also, what are the kind of policies that can be introduced to accelerate its adoption?
Thank you. Thank you for the questions. Very good questions. Yeah, some of the main barriers that countries face to adopt digital technologies and embark on digital transformation are first, the lack of knowledge of the technologies. Many of the people working at entities and utilities have not yet have contact with the newest technologies. There is also a barrier regarding the cost of applying those technologies to the specific sectors. Those technologies are provided by our private sector partners, by big firms and startups, but there is little knowledge of how much that would cost. There is also lack of data to apply technologies such as artificial intelligence. And there is also a difficult to quantify the benefits of investing in those technologies. Those barriers are the main. We are working to trying to reduce those barriers through pilots and knowledge creation, taking the technology closer to our clients, letting them experiment with those technologies and see for themselves the benefits. Now, regarding public policies, well, there is a saying that regulation goes behind technology, and that's very true. Typically, regulatory frameworks are designed for technologies from 20 years ago at least. So there is a need to update many public policies and regulatory frameworks in the region. One example, when we were doing a pilot, taking an autonomous vehicle to a country in Latin America, we came to see that the regulatory framework establishes that a vehicle has to have a steering wheel and pedals. And an autonomous vehicle, of course, doesn't have steering wheel or pedals. So it didn't classify as a vehicle. So we had to create an exception in the framework, in the regulatory framework, to be able to take that vehicle to Latin America. That's an example of how regulation is designed with technologies from the past.
Thank you, Alex. I have another question here, and this one is for Natalia. Natalia, can you elaborate a little bit more on some practical experiences that you can bring into the table about how this important initiative has been implemented with pilot or any other exercises in the region? And how do you think that we can entail or identify best practices for countries to adopt this initiative?
Thank you. So we have been working on these pilot projects. Maybe I can talk more about in these fruit and vegetable marketplaces in Colombia. So the objective here is to identify the behavioral changes and how we can reduce it through different types of experiments. And in other words, an RCT, right? So we can identify the ways that we can reduce, and this can then be replicable for other regions and other marketplaces. So I think it's super important here at the experiment stage and in these pilot projects to identify how we can reduce food loss and waste. What are the triggers towards changing behaviors, and yeah, this way we can then replicate it throughout other projects and other parts of the region.
Thank you, Natalia. And also, I have here a question that I got for Natasha. Natasha, could you please elaborate a little bit on the challenges that the initiative that you're talking about have to deal with whenever you have communities that are engaged in these mining activities, and that definitively will have something or a lot to say about the projects that in mining are implemented in the areas where they live?
Thank you, Ariel. That's a very important question, and I think that's one of the biggest concerns around mining activities, and for industry itself, really, and for governments and for everyone else, is how the mining industry, at the end of the day, interacts and integrates itself with local communities, and how does it make the most about its activity and the economic dynamism that it can generate in local territories. It's what we call the social license to operate. At the IDB, what we've done is, given our neutrality and given our technical expertise and that that broader perspective on development that we have, is partnering with government, industry, and civil society stakeholders to create spaces that allow for multi-stakeholder dialogue processes to take place effectively, where trust can be built and where these different stakeholders can a process can be facilitated to help them reach shared value agreements that are of interest to all of them, and for which all of these different stakeholders and different interest groups have a responsibility to act on and implement in a specific timeline. And I think that's a contribution that the IDB has been able to make in countries like Peru, Chile, Argentina, and Colombia, and now in Panama as well. It's a challenge to bring these different groups together and to reach a consensus among different visions, but we do think it's possible, and we do think that's the basis for leveraging the most of mining activity, which has so much economic value to generate for development and for local communities, especially.
Thank you, Natasha. I have here a question that I think that it is not directed specifically for one of you guys, so it's going to be a question for the three of you. And this is the question that I have in here, is how do you see in each one of the three initiatives the engagement that you may have between the private and public sector and the role that each one of them has to have in the different initiatives that you are talking about? And if you can elaborate a little bit about that. And I will go with Alex first, then Natalia, and then Natasha.
Yeah, thank you, Ariel, for the question. Thank you for the time. Yeah, the collaboration between the private and the public sector is vital to the digital transformation in the region. First, the technology comes mainly from the private sector. We need collaboration from our private sector partners to provide that technology. Then, our role as a multilateral bank is to improve lives in Latin America and the Caribbean. And we work mainly with governments. So we need collaboration also with our clients to allow those technologies to become part of their processes and to improve all the operations that we have in the region. So we need to combine those two worlds: the technology from the private sector, the needs and application and solution of problems in the public sector. When we combine those two, we can make a difference in the region.
Thank you, Alex. Natalia?
Yes, so the food loss and waste reduction agenda is a public-private agenda. So we need the enabling environment through the creation of public policies, regulations, legislation from governments, but also to create the incentives, right, for companies to move towards reducing food loss and waste. But then again, we need the private sector to identify this business case behind food waste reduction. So, for example, a future project, something we're working on is identifying across the food supply chain in Mexico and Colombia where are the hotspots of food loss and waste. And so by identifying this through studies, we can work with the private sector and with the governments in terms of creating policies and the private sectors for them to get the financing they need for reducing food loss and waste and using technology to do so.
Thank you, Natalia. Natasha?
Yes, that's again good because the challenges of the mining sector are enormous in both positive and negative ways, right? The different dimensions through which the mining sector affects development there are multiple dimensions. So these cannot be tackled solely by working with governments. It's the responsibility must be shared, and we're talking about the private sector. In the case of the mining sector, is the one generating the investments without which we can't talk about growth or development. I think at the IDB, at the group, at the Mining, Geothermal Energy and Hydrocarbons group, we've been able to foster these partnerships with industry actors directly in order to create a common space or a level ground in order to bring in together other stakeholders, like I said, in order to find more innovative solutions and solutions that can be shared by the different groups to these challenges. And we can do that. There are huge players, private sector players, that are providing these huge sums of resources and a little bit of support in translating these resources into development results and into specific projects and initiatives that aim to improve the lives and create resilience at the community level is key. And I think we've been able to foster that, and it's increasingly important, I think.
Thank you, Natasha. I have another question, and I have to be totally honest with you guys. I don't know who has to answer this question, but it is open for the three of you. In case that you think that you can answer the question is, how can the IDB foster the acceleration of new circular economy business models in Latin America and the Caribbean that consider the base of the pyramid a key stakeholder?
So I'm gonna take that question.
Okay, Natalia?
So the IDB can contribute to the transition to the circular economy through financing for the public sector, and also with the connection through IDB Invest, right? So financing for the private sector companies. So, for example, to get a little bit more about in this new project we're looking at, it's a public-private project between IDB and IDB Invest and RAP, an organization from the UK, which does many studies on food loss and waste, where we're going to do a hotspot analysis across the food supply chain in a few countries in Latin America, where we are going to identify where we see the most food loss or food waste across this chain, identify companies and technologies that they need to reduce this food loss and waste, and do the structuring behind IDB Invest in that case, in terms of providing the right finance and the right type of innovative financial products that these companies can take on to include this technology for reducing food loss and waste. So that's just a little bit an example of how from the IDB and from this coordination and cooperation between both our public and private side, we can contribute to transitioning to a circular economy.
Thank you,
And
Natalia.
Ariel, if I may add,
Sure, Alex.
usually when adopting digital technologies or disruptive technologies in general, the base of the pyramid is not taken into account. For example, that happened when mobile telephony was introduced into the market. First, it went to the high-income market, and many years later, it reached the base of the pyramid. But I think the answer to how to include the base of the pyramid as a stakeholder in the digital transformation, the answer comes from the technologies themselves, because to adopt those technologies, we need data. And what we could do is to make sure that data represents the base of the pyramid as a stakeholder. We are working very hard on gathering data from Latin America and the Caribbean to design our pilots, our operations, our policy updates. If we use the technology, digital technologies, to get data from those segments of the population, we are making sure that their views are taken into account and the digital transformation will benefit them.
Thank you, Alex. I have another question here, and I think that is applicable to the three initiatives. And the specific question is, gender equality is an important component of the Vision 2025 of IDB. How these initiatives take into account that important element of the Vision 2025? And I will go first with Natasha.
Thanks, Ariel. Yes, as I briefly mentioned, the extractive industries, the mining sector, is extremely masculine. Women account for less than 10% of the labor force. So that has been part of that has been a priority item of our agenda in the past years, in terms of how do we approach this issue, which is huge, and it's not particular to Latin American either, because you have mining countries like Canada and Australia that number of women in the sector don't surpass 25%. So it's still, we're talking about very low numbers, and in a huge sector, hugely important sector. So what our approach has been multi-pronged in the sense that, okay, so there's a challenge of increasing the amount of women in the sector, in the industry directly, but not only in terms of the amount of women workers in the industry, but the quality of work that they have in the sector, because most of them have been in administrative positions that don't have a lot of mobility and that don't offer many opportunities. So how do we promote female leadership in the industry as well as we increase the number of female workers? That's one part. The other part is the inclusion of women in local decision-making processes. And we're talking about, multi-stakeholder dialogues, and we're talking about consultations, and we're talking about, involving and taking into account communities' participations. Well, women are a very important part of these local communities. And so they have an important say on the decisions that are being taken around projects that can be transformational for their lifestyles and for their families. So how do we involve women more directly and more effectively in these processes? And the third is working on policies at the government level, as we've done with Colombia, mainstreaming the gender perspective in sector policies. I think that's something that has worked well in Colombia, and we're doing it, starting to do it in other countries as well. So it's a humongous challenge. The gaps are huge. There's a lot of data gaps as well. So what Alex said about using technologies to get this data is super important and super useful. And once again, and I don't want to be repetitive, but this is important. We require this multi-dimensional approach to tackle gender equality in this sector, because there's a huge path to achieve.
Thank you, Natasha. Natalia, any comments on that?
Well, yeah, I could mention just a few points. Our interventions in the food loss and waste area these interventions mainstream a gender perspective in terms of small producers and small farmers, women that work in the fruits and vegetable areas. So that's something that's very important and is a core part of our interventions. Also, it's important to say that there's a study from the IDB that says that the transition to net zero emissions, most of the jobs that are going to be benefited and are going to grow are male dominated in some sense. And so it's important to take this into account into our policies, into our projects, looking forward in this joint effort from different sectors to reduce our emissions through the circular economy and other interventions.
Thank you, Natalia. And Alex?
Yeah, I want to emphasize that digital technologies could bring us data with gender perspective. Through technologies, for instance, computer vision, we are being able to identify women in specific roles, for instance, in buses or in bicycle routes. And that's an opportunity that we didn't have before with surveys, for instance. So technology will play a role in that. And another way that we can encourage gender equity in the digital transformation is through generation of digital skills, bringing women closer to data science, for instance. And I have to say that we at the Infrastructure Energy Department, we have made some progress. We have a team of 3 data scientists, and 2 of them are women.
Perfect, Alex. Thanks a lot. Well, I don't have any more questions, but I think it is fair enough, because we are in good timing to conclude with the session. Well, thank you, Natasha. Thank you, Natalia, and thank you, Alex, for your comments and the very good information that you provide to the audience about the 3 different initiatives. And thanks to your support, the IDB can better achieve its mission of improving lives in the region. And as you can see, there are plenty of opportunities for all of you to join us in that mission. Our collaboration goes beyond finance, that is a fact. Knowledge and your technical expertise are required to contribute to a more responsible, digitalized, and circular development agenda. And we hope that you can join us. Thank you all. Have a good day.